Good day, everyone. For today, we will be learning the developmentally appropriate curriculum. So, for our topic, developmentally appropriate curriculum, we have three objectives. The first one is to discuss developmentally appropriate curriculum aligned to its goals and objectives. The second one is to integrate ideas on how impactful the developmentally appropriate curriculum can be. And lastly is to elaborate the advantages and challenges that developmentally appropriate curriculum have.
Hello, I am Louise Mangaya, and for today you can call me Teacher Louise. So, the question for today is, what is the developmentally appropriate practices? Well, according to the National Association for the Education of Young Children 2020, developmentally appropriate practices serves as a method that allows every child to develop and learn through different approaches, such as play-based and strength-based. It also acts as a framework or set of rules in supporting developmentally appropriate, demanding, and doable activities for all the students. Educators will be able to strengthen the children's strengths and assist all the children to reach their potential in all areas of life by using this method, which acknowledges each child's numerous assets. The next question will be when and why did the DAP start? Ito ay nagsimula noong mid-1980s at ang rason ay upang matugunan ang current concern about children's learning and development. The three fundamental considerations: child development appropriateness, individual needs, and cultural differences. In child development appropriateness, dito nakalagay yung age appropriateness, kung saan kapag nalaman mo yung age ng bata, parang alam mo na rin yung needs, yung wants, yung environment na kailangan niya upang mag-learn. Sa individual needs naman, dito mo kailangan obserbahan yung bata, kung paano siya makapag-usap, kung paano siya makahalubilo, at kung ano yung topic na pinag-uusapan nila sa usapan nila magkakaibigan. Dito mo malaman yung needs niya, yung wants niya, at kung ano yung nakakakuha ng atensyon niya at yung interest niya. Sa cultural differences naman ay dapat malaman mo yung culture ng bata kung ano yung kinalakahan niyang paniniwala para makapag-set ka ng boundaries sa mga activities mo at marespeto sila. According to Shipley 2014, implementing developmentally appropriate methods include meeting the developmental stage of the pupils and enabling them to attain their goals. It also closes learning gaps, raises success for all learners, and encourages students to contribute and participate by doing and solving their own issues. She also claimed that using developmentally appropriate techniques will help instructors to differentiate teaching, engage kids in the learning process, and improve overall achievement for all students. The classroom environment should be interesting, caring, and appealing. Plus, students should be evaluated. So, alam naman natin na madaling maboard ang mga bata. Konting galaw lang nila ay gusto na nila panibagong gawain na naman. Ang interesting dapat yung mga topic natin. Halimbawa dito ay, if magi-storytelling tayo, dapat nasa character tayo para maengganyo sila na makinig. Pag nag-lesson naman tayo, dapat ginagamit natin yung high and low voice natin para nakukuha din natin yung attention nila. And dapat alam natin kung saan sila interesado. Sa evaluated naman, kailangan yung mga estudyante ay evaluated upang malaman natin if nakagain sila ng bagong skills or may na-master silang skills.
One of the professional responsibilities of early childhood educators is the responsibility the responsibility to plan and implement intentional, developmentally appropriate learning experiences that promotes the social development, emotional development, physical development, cognitive development, and general learning competencies of each child. The reason why developmentally appropriate practices are existing is because this is needed to fill in the needs of the students or their learning gaps. So, developmentally appropriate and child-centered curriculum refers to the planning and executing a curriculum based on what learners are able to do cognitively, physically, and emotionally at a certain age, as stated by Eliasson in 2008. So we came up with these three summarized advantages of developmentally appropriate practices. The first one is it responds to the students' needs while cultivating their current skills and abilities. The second one is it fosters individuality, while the last one, it provides a balanced continuity and change in teaching environment. And with that, the first advantage of the developmentally appropriate curriculum is response to the students' needs while cultivating their current skills and abilities. So the early childhood educators have the responsibility of getting to know each child well, understanding each child as an individual and as a family and community member. So si teacher, gumagamit siya ng iba't ibang methods para makilala ang kanyang mga estudyante. Isa na rito yung reflecting on their knowledge of the community. Dito, inoobserbahan at inaalam ni teacher kung gaano nga ba ka-aware ang isang learner ukol sa kanyang kapaligiran, ukol sa maalam ba si student sa kanyang ginagalawan na mundo, yung mga taong nakapaligid, pati na rin ang kanyang mga kaibigan or family. So, gumagamit din si teacher ng pagsisik ng information from the family. Pwede siya magtanong kay mommy, kay daddy, kay yaya, or kahit sinong guardian ang nagbabantay sa kanya. With this, tatanungin ni teacher yung guardian or parents niya kung ano nga ba ang ugali niya. Kung close ba siya kay daddy, close ba siya kay mommy, close ba siya kay ate, close ba siya kay kuya, and tatanungin din ni teacher kung tahimik ba yung bata or madaldal yung bata sa kanilang tahanan. Aside from that, gumagamit din si teacher ng pag-observe or observing the child. Dito, pwede magamit to ni teacher kapag nasa loob sila ng isang classroom. Kung paano gumalaw si student inside the classroom. Whether hilig niya bang mapag-isa, friendly ba siya, madaldal ba siya, tahimik ba siya, galaw-gaw ba siya, or lagi lang nakaupo. Again, aside from that, may ginagamit pa si teacher na isa pa. Ito yung authentic, valid, and reliable individual child assessments. Wherein dito, gumagamit naman si teacher ng mga instruments or mga pang-measure kung gaano nga ba gumalaw or natututo si students. Dito tinitignan niya yung mga outputs na ginagawa ni student. So, through these things, the teacher will be able to create activities that suit the students' needs. But the activities must be challenging enough for them para matuto sila. Kumbaga, dapat sakto lang yung level of difficulty nung activities na ibibigay ni teacher. Kumbaga, ito yung kakayanan ni students and ito lang yung hirap nung activity na ibibigay niya. Kasi kung nandito yan, masyadong mahihirapan si students. Maaaring maging demotivated siya, iisipin niya, ay hindi ko na kaya, ganon. Kung kapag nandito naman, kumbaga hindi na nag-grow yung bata kasi super nadadalian na siya, kayang-kaya niya na yan. Kaya dapat dito lang talaga, sakto lang. Just right above their current skills and abilities. Ayun. So, as mentioned by Kano, Nuki, and Cruz in 2013, it helps the children to achieve appropriate learning as well as ensure their growth and development over time. It provides lifelong learning among children na babaunin ng mga batang ito sa buong tanan ng buhay nila. Which leads to the second advantage that developmentally appropriate curriculum fosters individuality. According to the National Association for the Education of Young Children, or also known as NAEYC, developmentally appropriate curriculums activities must be age appropriate, individually appropriate, and socially and culturally appropriate, wherein these three components will serve as a guide towards developing students holistically. Other than this, it has also an advantage towards the teaching practitioners itself, for it provides a balanced continuity and change in teaching environment. Continuity because it guides a tradition of ensuring quality learning, and change as it integrates new research and knowledge about children's learning and development. Education is the backbone of the society, whereas advantages are visible. But of course, there are also challenges that are faced by the educators and learners. It is supposed to be advantages and disadvantages, diba? Pero I think it is better to use challenges than disadvantages, since there are ways to resolve these challenges. Anyway, here are the challenges. The first one is the availability and lack of support from the educational institution itself. The second one is early childhood educators, professionalism, and knowledge about the curriculum. And lastly, the traditional educators who believe that implementing developmentally appropriate practices or curriculum should not be considered as an option to teach children. As for the first challenge, it is the availability and lack of support from the educational institution itself. By implementing a developmentally appropriate practice curriculum, a lot of things and resources or materials are needed to effectively integrate play with learning, especially sa ating mga differently abled students na nangangailangan ng special toys to accommodate them, kung saan yung mga toys and learning materials, equipments na makakatulong sa educators para makapagturo ng maayos ay sobrang mahal. Kumbaga, kulang sa budget dahil hindi nasusuportahan masyado ng educational institution nila. So we combined the other two challenges now since it is highly connected. So let's continue na. Another challenge is the early childhood educators' professionalism and knowledge about the curriculum. Katulad nga na aming mga nabanggit, this type of curriculum or this DAP integrates play in the process of learning and aims to develop all the learning areas of the child through the use of 9 multiple intelligences ni Gardner. Kumbaga, si teacher ay hindi lamang nakafocus sa pagiging matalino ng isang bata, pagiging matalino sa mga subjects. Kumbaga, sa 9 multiple intelligences ni Gardner, Dito malalaman natin yung naturalistic, musical, logical mathematical, existential, interpersonal, linguistic, bodily kinesthetic, intrapersonal, and spatial intelligences. So in connection with that, there are traditional educators who believe that implementing developmentally appropriate practices curriculum should not be considered as an option to teach, mainly because marami raw masyadong effort na kailangan gawin si teacher, na dapat daw hands-on si teacher to effectively do it para mag-success ka dun. Bukod pa rito, it is said that the nature of developmentally appropriate practices is way far from different from the traditional nature of teaching na nakasanayan ng mga traditional teachers na ito, na ginagamit na daw sa matagal na panahon. Kumbaga, dito mas nakafocus yung mga traditional educators sa pagiging makabisado ng mga bata sa memorization. So considering that play is just a form of enjoyment, some educators argued that children would not really learn on a play-based teaching, and it will only serve as a distraction. Ang paglalaro daw ng bata ay magiging distraction lang daw. So, on the other hand naman, a large number of school institutions have proven this wrong. The main proof of this, marami pa ring mga schools ang gumagamit ng developmentally appropriate practice curriculum. May mga gumagamit pa rin nito hanggang sa mga panahon na ito.
Teachers' roles. Number 1 is to get to know the kids. It will assist the educator in identifying each other's needs and interests. It is possible to promote inclusiveness by introducing developmentally appropriate activities that give equal knowledge and comprehension to all. Number 2 is to set the environment into individual team. This would be a great help to the children to know their strengths and weaknesses and express what they like to do. It also motivates them to choose freely what they want and need to learn. Number 3 is facilitator. The instructor would simply act as a facilitator in the game, leading but not limiting the activities that the children desire to engage in. The teacher's responsibility in sharing and chatting with the kids is to listen to what the children are saying. Number 4, guide. Children's imaginations are limitless. The instructor should help children to understand what the things or objects are named and what their function is. Using such annotation and pitch would greatly help the students in learning about the material.
In terms of the application of developmentally appropriate curriculum in the Philippines, more than the vital role of the educator, the environment takes an extensive role in cultivating the learner's abilities and skills. As stated by Bullard in 2010, the environment we are in affects our moods, ability to form relationships, effectiveness in work or play, even our health. Educators must build an ideal classroom that radiates a positive aura and vibe. Si teacher pwedeng i-decorate yung classroom with colorful designs depicting alphabet, shapes, or even cartoon characters that are loved by children. Kasi makaka-encourage to sa mga students na pumasok sa school. Aside from this, si teacher dapat organize siya. Kailangan at mas mabuting labelan niya yung mga educational areas of the classroom, such as the play area, shelves kung saan pwede itago ng mga students yung mga gamit nila, and the like. So, the use of printed labels that contain words and visuals will serve as a guide for the students. Since may mga estudyante lalong-lalo na sa nursery at kinder na hindi pa marunong magbasa. Kaya dun sila magbabatay sa picture or visual or icon na ilalagay ni teacher sa label. So, through this, it can practice a child's coordination. For example, si Teacher Louise can ask her students to get the book that they want to read or to scan since meron naman itong mga pictures. And afterwards, kapag tapos na yung reading time nila, pwedeng sabihin ni teacher sa mga estudyante na ibalik na yung mga books na kinuha nila kung saan ito talaga nakalagay. So, implementing developmentally appropriate practice curriculum does not only depend on the environment and on the child itself, but it also depends on the teacher's approach. Teachers serve as the moral agent and role model of the students on how they treat their students. Kung ano yung pinapakita nilang ugali, whether kung si teacher ba ay genuine or masungit, which is a no-no sa kindergarten to grade 3 kasi it might scare the children away, di ba? So I will give a real-life example which was experienced by my pamangkin sa pinsan. So back when he was in his first grade, naabutan siya ng teacher niya na nakikipaghabulan sa classmate niya inside the classroom. And ang resulta, nagalit si teacher to the point na sinigawan niya yung pamangkin ko, the student, and tinapon yung mga gamit sa labas ng classroom, which made my pamangkin scared to go to school and worse, nag-stop siya for 1 year. And ang reason niya kasi ay ayaw niya nang mag-aral dahil natatakot daw siya kay teacher. So, as we can see, no, talagang napakalaking epekto ng approach ng teacher kay student.
Here are some examples. Patricia's teacher, Louella, so that she did not engage in claiming some items to play with. So she chose to change all materials, tools, and equipment every week to see which piqued the kids' interest. In that regard, she recognized what drew the pupils' attention. So, ito ay nagpapakita na ang mga bata ay may iba't ibang interest at needs. Sila ay hindi pare-pareho ng learning styles and growth. Another example would be, May weep since she is unable to take the toys she desired in the classroom since the shelves are too high for her level. Teacher Louise is concerned about this and was considering a way. So, she adjusted the height of the shelves that seemed to be reachable for the children's height just after the class finished. So, ito naman ay nagpapakita na kailangan na ang mga gamit ay accessible sa mga bata at nakaayon sa height nila para maaabot nila ito.
As for our insights, in conclusion, developmentally appropriate practice curriculum is our future. As for the fact that it is a wide-ranging educational perspective that supports optimal healthy development for every child, it is a must for us to be educated on how we will be able to achieve and use it for our future profession. We are now living in the modern world, whereas one of the notable activity these days is exploring the net, right? Kaya we must utilize the era of technology. According to National Association for the Education of Young Children or NAEYC, use responsibly and intentionally technology and interactive media can be valuable tools for supporting children's development and learning. Pertaining to its benefits, we can use the net as teachers, be it for research purposes. Sa net kasi makakakita ka ng iba't ibang research na pwedeng makapagbigay sa'yo ng bagong kaalaman. Pwede rin nating gamitin yung internet using the media available online. Ito yung mga online resources. Halimbawa na lamang sa YouTube. Dito pwede nating gamitin sa ating mga students yung mga educational videos or yung nursery rhymes, di ba? So, or even connecting with people to exchange knowledge. And as we all know, katulad na lamang ng ginagawa natin ngayon, through online class, nakakapag-exchange tayo ng knowledge. Through the internet, nagagamit natin ito para makapagbigay impormasyon at makareceive ng impormasyon. So, all teaching practices should reflect the child as a unique individual by a teacher by being responsive to social and cultural context in which each child lives, as stated by Koppel and Bredekamp in 2009. Ayun. So, as mentioned, no, teachers and the curriculum serve as the foundation of every student. That boils down to the fact that teachers must be in a good shape. DAP or Developmentally Appropriate Practices highlighted that pre-service teachers are already conquering their path as an educator. That is why an education student like us must also take care of themselves. Due to the fact that the Philippines is still under quarantine wherein ang face-to-face classes ay hindi pa rin pwede. Kumbaga limited pa lang, may ibang schools na rin po kasi ang nagkakandak ng face-to-face classes katulad na lamang ng Chinese, no? Yung Chinese General University or something like that po. Ayun, so for sure everyone has felt their own emotion towards the new setup. We all know how demanding online classes are. Worse, some of us in our sections might have cried last night out of stress or frustration, diba? But as future educators, we must keep in our mind that we are all in this together. We are on a journey of shaping the nation, so we must put our hearts in every actions we do. Kailangan din natin i-prioritize yung sarili natin na kung ikaw ay burned out, huwag kang mag-hesitate na mag-rest and learn to uplift yourself through words of affirmations. Kailangan din nating i-celebrate ang small victories natin. Kahit na sabihin mo ngayon, ay, pumasok ako sa klase na to, i-congrats mo na rin yung sarili mo kasi achievement na yun. You have made this far, di ba? So, developmentally appropriate curriculum is the most relevant educational approach towards the learners. So, DAP is a play-based curriculum. Kumbaga, kung saan educators use innovations in order to meet the goal, which is to provide educational activities that scope three things: interests of the children or learners, challenging yet achievable activities, and assurance that learners enjoy the process while they are acquiring knowledge. Kaya para sa amin, ang DAP ay ang pinaka-epektibong curriculum para sa lahat. Kasi dito ay nakakapag-enjoy ang bata sa paglalaro pero at the same time, natututo sila. Nalalaman nila ang kanilang sarili at ang mga kakayanan nila. Yun lamang po. Salamat.